in the last Babe Ruth series here in San Francisco. But which direction are they going to go, Goo?
I'll tell you what, and while you were gone, I know you tuned in that one day. Remember, we shouted you out, so I hope that gave you some love in Sweet Dan. But I'm a lover. I'm a baseball romantic, a sports romantic, so all I do is follow the standings, and the Giants. Hey, look, I'm not going to tell anybody that this has not been, up until this point, a disappointing season. But when you tell me after the 4-game sweep of the Rockies, who are terrible, by the way, Evan, that you're only 3.5 back of your goal, and that's to qualify for the party, i.e. the Arizona Diamondbacks that used that and went to the World Series last year. How the hell can any Giant fan from afar say you want to see this team sail? And if you sail, to me, you're waving the white flag, Evan, but I'm going Jim Carrey. You're saying there's a chance. So to me, if I don't believe Farhan's in any trouble, a lot of people do. I'm not in the know, but if I'm Farhan and I am actually fighting for my life, shout out Mark Jackson, I'm buying by tomorrow come the deadline, because we're only, after this weekend, 3.5 back.
Yeah, it's like from afar, I think a lot of people are looking at the Giants and you would wonder why they would buy, right? Because they're 2 games below 500. Sure, they just swept the Rockies in 4 games, but the Rockies are, what was it they said in Moneyball? There's the top teams, there's 50 pile of crap, 50 feet of crap, and then there's the Colorado Rockies. So they're not a very good team. But from afar, Han, you do have to look at this roster and say, basically, how are we going to salvage this season? I think that's the question they're trying to figure out, and that's going to determine whether they sell or whether they buy. To me, Goo, I don't know how much they can buy. All I know is that I don't want to see this team sell. And that may sound ridiculous. Yeah. That may sound stupid and idiotic. And I've been watching some baseball from afar, so I've kind of just been viewing it as a fan. This team is not great. This team is not bad. This team is somewhere stuck in the middle. It's probably symbolic of where they've been for what seems like the last 5 or 6 years with Farhan Zaidi. They are officially 2/3 of the way through the season, and they have been above 500 for 4 days.
Damn.
That is the definition of mediocrity.
Man.
That is below average. That's where they've sat. But I still can't sit up in here, and we can get into all the reasons why, but I do not feel like this is a team that wants to sell. I do not think this is a front office that wants to sell. And though a lot of fans believe that's the route to go, I think it's just because they're fed up and they're done with this front office.
Wow. I hear you, Evan, and nobody can tell us that this season up until this juncture has not been a disappointment. Guys have been underperforming all across the roster. So to try to find a positive, what if you get hot, Evan? What if you talked about Fitzgerald? He's in his Ramos zone right now. Ramos used the first half, come back to earth, but he used the first half to parlay that into an all-star berth. So I'm betting on things to get better and guys to play better. But damn it, Evan, you saw Robbie Ray, who pitches tomorrow against the A's. If you're telling me you could actually qualify and pick between Webb, Snell, or Robbie Ray, the good Robbie Ray, for a 1-game wild card, I'll take that all day. And then if you were able to get in, shout out Too Short, if you could get in, Evan, and you got Snell, you got Ray, and you got Webb, I'll take that over a lot of rotation. So I know it sounds like I'm dreaming, but from that standpoint, damn it, I'm adding or I'm not selling, because if I sell, I got over a $200 million payroll. I went shopping. You admit air there. But I heard Shasky and Bonte. Great show. Bonte's pro, buy, paraphrasing for Shasky, sell. But if you sell and redo it, are you so confident that you got the right guys to bring you back? So to me, Evan, I'm going all in, man. I'm poker term, all in, baby.
Well, that is the one thing that I don't think the Giants will be, because they, under Farhan Zaidi, have never been an all-in team. Like, if you just look at the previous 5 deadlines, let's just go through them, right? 2019, first year Farhan Zaidi. Last year, Bruce Bochy. They were sellers. They moved off Melanson and I think Sam Dyson to a somewhat of an extent. But they weren't a team. They didn't move off of Bumgarner, right, when they could have. Yeah. They chose to keep him. And then the next few years, in 2020, they were 17 and 19 at the deadline, pandemic-shortened season. They did neither. They didn't sell. They didn't buy. In 2021, they bought, but at a price that was right for them. The miracle season, right? They got Chris Bryant. 2022,
Man.
they were 500 at the deadline, 51 all. They did neither. They didn't move in one direction or the other. And then, of course, last season, I know that they technically were buyers. They added players, but in my opinion, adding A.J. Pollock is not a move that moves the needle for me one way or the other.
I hear that.
So this is a front office that generally has stood pat at the deadline. They do not do either. They do not sell. They do not buy. And that's why I think that that's the most likely outcome right now. But to me, the one thing they cannot do, and again, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that they should be the ones to sell. They can't do it.
Yeah. Wow.
I do not believe that this team can sell. Because the question you need to ask yourself if you're a Giants fan is, yes, there's been 5 years you're pissed off. Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? I'm not even looking at the rest of the schedule. They got 54 games left. It's the easiest schedule in baseball. Whatever. That doesn't matter. The question to me is, Goo, do you think that you are good enough to get the final wild card spot in the National League?
Wonderful question, Evan. We kind of threw it out there last week, Stoney and I put something in the cap. We were talking about bad takes and good takes that we hit on and missed. And mine was, I believe the Giants are going to win a playoff series. Now, they got to go out there and handle their business. But that premise is based on, when you look at this roster, now the rotation, Snell's got his groove back. Evan, I think they are. But about what you just laid out, the past deadlines, would you allow me to, introduce this to the jury? Farhan had he had confidence that he was going nowhere. What about if there is some lemon booty pressure involved? If he is really under the gun, maybe he'll do something different because his job is on the line. Do you buy that?
100%.
Okay. But I don't think his job is on the line. I think the Johnsons don't care. You fired Gabe Kapler. He was the scapegoat. But look at what you've done since he's gone, and you gave him a new contract. So to me, I don't think there's any – I hate it. I thought he should have been out with Kapler. But what if I tell you I don't feel like Farhan's fighting for his job?
I think he is. Yeah, and that's why I do think that this deadline is extremely important. Because whatever direction they choose to go, I think also determines the future of Farhan Zaidi in one way or another. If they choose to sell, there is a possibility that they just tank the rest of this season. They move off from him at the end. But I don't know about you. I get the feeling that if this Giants team sell, which is what the fans appear to want.
A majority of
that's
Twitter
the consensus.
X. Yeah.
Get rid of everybody you can. Sell Snell. Move off of Chapman. Sell... trade whoever you can to recoup some prospects and kind of start this thing anew. I almost believe that if they're sellers at the deadline, it indicates that Farhan Zaidi believes that he's got some job security.
Wow.
That he doesn't feel like he's on the hot seat, because otherwise, why would you sell?
Yeah.
Like, if you really think that you're out the door at the end of the season and the only thing that can save your job is to make the playoffs, then why the hell would you sell?
Well, maybe because your boss knows what time it is, and we brought this up Friday, Evan. I didn't agree with it, but Stoney was saying maybe the ownership, I'm paraphrasing, takes the keys from Farhan and says, hey, you want to go buy that? No, we know where we're at. We're realistic. We're not going to allow you to do that. But, Evan, again, I keep looking at the standings. The Giants are not a 53 and 55 team. They've played that way. They've earned their record. I think they're better, and I would stand pat and try to add something that was – that made sense. But if guys can get hot, we're seeing Fitzgerald come out of nowhere, and I know it's a short sample size, but what if that was infectious and guys put their best foot forward for these last 54 games? I just that Arizona Diamondback run last year to me is the reason I would not sell. But if you sell, Evan, then what are we talking about next year? And the year after, it's just like this bad era of Giant baseball continues. Evan, they haven't won a playoff series since 2014.
That's a long time.
That's a decade, bro.
That's a long-ass time.
Man.
And they've been in the playoffs since 2014 twice.
Wow, that's even worse.
Exactly, yeah. 2 times in the last 10 years, right?
Cubs and Dodgers.
2016 and then 2021. And that's what they're looking at right now between both regimes. This ain't just Farhan, too. The 4 years before that were under, what was it, Bobby Evans.
Yeah.
So right now the Giants, they're not looked at nationally like a team that is just going to come out of nowhere. But that's almost why, again, I'm reading the tea leaves of this front office, and I do not think that this is a group, unless to Steiny's point, they are demanded to sell by ownership.
And we'll never know until it's all said and done, right?
But I don't think an ownership that green lights you spending $200+ million this offseason is going to turn their head less than a full season into that direction.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They got 54 games left. They are 2/3 of the way through the season. They got a third of the season left. And that third of the season, to me, is going to dictate which direction this franchise goes.
Yeah, Evan, I'm older than you, so I can remember where there was just 4 divisions. And if you, the guru computer, if you were 9 back going into September, I felt like you had action, or 8. But good God, 54 games left. You're 3.5 out. Like you said, they haven't won 5 games in a row all year. They've done it 3 times, the third time being this weekend. I do wonder, Evan, how are the powers to be, let's just say Farhan's bosses, are they looking at this weekend like it was just the Rockies, who we lost 2 or 3 out the break, that just really had people down? But Evan, I'm with you, pal. I just don't see a scenario to where, okay, hey, our goal, it's in the I'm not selling. Why would I, when my pitching is the best component of our team? And if guys can get hot at the dish, anything can happen. And the Diamondbacks, I'm going to say that all day. They used the wild card to get to the World Series last year, and nobody saw that coming.
What direction do you want the Giants to go in? 888-957-9570. I've been getting in for Matt Stein, Matt Sterl, the Guru Johnson. Got a piece of news, Goo. From the pitch.
Okay.
Well, at least that's what they call it overseas. From the gridiron. American football.
I was like, damn, the pitch.
No, the amount of times I had to switch between football and soccer, they were just calling me an ugly American
tell us about it.
10 days in a row. This is from Adam Schefter of ESPN. The 49ers have announced that they've activated wide receiver Ricky Pearsall from the active/non-football injury list. So Pearsall is going to be active for practice. Brandon Ayuk, it appears, will not be.
Wow. And again, Evan, that's good news for the Niners, because I'm a worrywart. I was thinking, man, is this dude, did he pop his hammy? I mean, this is bad, but it looks like he'll be back. And I just wonder if we're talking about Brandon Ayuk's replacement, who, again, since you left and nobody's shocked, he's holding in. Just real quick here, Evan, do you think this thing gets worked out in regard to Ayuk getting his money? And I know we got Mark Schlereth coming on at 12:30. He has some strong comments, but do you think it's going to get? Do you think this is going to work for Brandon?
I think it is, and I think it's going to, more importantly, work for the 49ers either way. I'm not sure. I don't see Ayuk getting traded right now. And the date to kind of circle in my mind, and again, we can talk about this at 12:30 with Mark Schlereth coming up on the River Islands text line, or the River Islands guest line, pardon me. But I think that it has to do with August 1st. That's the date that Deebo Samuel inked his contract with the 49ers.
All right.
So a lot of people have been putting that out there as well. That's kind of the due date, essentially, for Ayuk, because he's not resetting the market. It's not a Bosa situation. And he's kind of in the same spot that Deebo was. But now it appears like that Ricky Pearsall is out active. He's got some less leverage.
Yeah.
So everything is going to be monitored in terms of 49er land down in Santa Clara. What's going on there? What's going on with Trent Williams? I know we got a victory left to take a little bit later in the show. But what do you want? And I'm asking the people, what do you want the Giants to do in less or a little bit more than 24 hours? 3 o'clock is the deadline tomorrow, Tuesday, and they don't play until then. So all you have to judge the Giants on is what you've seen for the first 108 games of this season. And on paper, it hasn't looked very good. Like, again, they've spent 4 days above 500 as a team.
That's a problem.
That's not that's not very inspiring, right? But I just feel like with where they are, and I'm talking about the front office, I don't think that they're going to give in. And I wouldn't necessarily suggest that they give in, because selling in other sports generally involves a tank, right? You're trying to aim for draft position. Maybe you're trying to aim to, improve your roster for down the line. In baseball, that's not as easy of a task. You do have to thread the needle a bit, which is what they've done, again, over the last 5 trade deadlines. They've tried to thread needles. It's worked once in 2021, although they didn't win a playoff series. That's the only time in which they've been, in my opinion, aggressive. The only time that Farhan Zaidi has sold, has been an official seller, was his very first season as president of baseball operations.
Man.
That's the only time. So I don't see that changing 5 years later, 6 years later.
And life comes at you fast. You say that was his first year, and we thought a lot of people did. He was building something. By the time the 5th year would come around, we wouldn't even be talking about wild card. Maybe the Giants would be battling the Dodgers for a division, but that's not going to happen this year. But I do feel like there's pressure. There's pressure on Farhan, but what will he do? And what's interesting and what I like about the deadline this year, Evan, is by the time they take on the Oakland A's, the deadline will have come and gone. What do they do? And again, they have not played their best baseball. 54 games is a lot to me in baseball for people to kind of change their direction. Look at Snell. He was horrible. You got another victory lap because when they announced Snell was coming here, you said, hey, everybody slow down. He's notoriously a slow starter, which he was, and it was kind of ugly. ERA over 10 in the low nines by the break. And now he looks like Sandy Koufax. And Robbie Ray looked great. And then, the old Mr. Reliable, Logan Webb. So, Evan, why would I just run away from that and not roll the dice hoping guys with the bat can get hot and take it from there? And the 415 on the text line, are the Giants good enough to do something with the third wild card? I don't have that answer, but I damn sure would like to find out. And if I were to pose that question in Arizona last year about the Diamondbacks, people probably would have laughed and scoffed at it, and look what they did. So it's not about me giving you a concrete answer because I can't predict the future, but damn, Evan, give me a series, give me a playoff wild card game, especially when I spent $200 million in the offseason.
Yes, exactly. Like, that's the whole beginning of this, right? Is spending that much money to make the playoffs. So I do think that to me, you talk about being all in at the deadline. That was their all in.
That's it.
That was going all in on this season. I don't think you can pull the plug on the season if you've spent that much money. Beautiful. You cannot do it. And yeah, okay, this is from the 415. And I think it's a good point. Stop talking about buying and selling. I mean, those are just generic terms. Yeah. These are trades. Buying is done during free agency. That's when the Giants bought. They bought a lot of players. You have to look at these trades and consider what is on the other side of the trade, what the Giants receiving. This is a great opportunity to take advantage of teams who are desperate to make the playoffs and pick up great prospects to build future teams. That's from the 415. I'm imagining the only guy that is going to fetch you a big or a set of prospects is Blake Snell.
Yeah.
I don't think Matt Chapman is a guy that is going to get you a bevy of bullets in your farm system. So let's talk about it. Blake Snell's the guy. Do you sell Snell? Because that, to me, is the one name that every team right now is going to want. That's the only guy on this Giants team, as far as a rental is concerned, is the guy that I want.
Yeah, but Evan, if I'm as thirsty as we talked about as a Giant fan, and we haven't won in forever, to the 415, appreciate the text. But damn, why can't you look yourself in the mirror as one of those teams trying to make the playoffs? You're 3.5 back. Snell, to me, is going nowhere. I'm riding this bad boy out until we are officially eliminated, Evan. I'm sorry. I'm not pulling the plug on something I spent a lot of money on. So just from that standpoint, Snell is going to be our pitcher. And if he continues to be dominant or pitch the way he has, you got to feel like every time you go out on the bump, and Carter talked about it in the green room, if maybe the Giants aren't this team under 500, playing the schedule game like we play the Nats and the Reds. Well, guess what? You've been those teams all year long, but I just feel like all it takes is they've won 4. I don't care who it's against, but Evan, if they could win 8 of the next 9, 10 of the next 13, then what are we talking about? That's why your boy is now pulling the plug.
Well, and that's why it's almost funny. Like, each time they've been at 6 games below 500 this year, they've quote unquote saved the season. Like, so when they've had their backs up against the wall, the team responds. Mm-hmm. The issue is that they can't get over the 500 hurdle.
Sustain.
Every time we think that they've turned a corner, they revert back to what we know them to be, which is a mediocre baseball club. For example, they were 19-25 on May 14th.
Ooh.
They responded by going 10-2. That was during the Pirates road trip.
The Nets.
A lot of magic for the Giants on that trip, right?
Yeah.
On June 23rd, they were 36-42, 6 games below 500. They responded by going 8-3 on a trip that involved being on the road. I think they took 2 or 3 from the Braves. They were looking like they're starting to turn the corner, plans in baseball. And then the Dodgers came in, and then they fell back to whatever. Right now, they're in the midst of potentially saving the season again, which is why it's interesting that the 4-game sweep of the Colorado Rockies comes right after they look lackluster out of the All-Star game, and they're 6 games below 500, and now they're taking that shovel and they're digging themselves out of a hole again. So which Giants team do you expect? Do you expect this team to continue to roll? that they finally got some pitching on their side, that they finally look like they know what they're doing at the plate with a couple of these dudes? Or are they the team that once they get back to around or near 500, then they're going to soften up again?
Yeah, and that's what the Oakland A's mean to me when we watch this 2-game set starting tomorrow night. Like, let's see it. And I'll read this to you, Evan. You tell me what you think. Adrian Gutierrez on the YouTube chat. This team has responded beating bad teams. That's very valid, but at some point or juncture, that has to change, and it starts with the A's tomorrow. And if they go out and lose to the A's at home, who have more power and play hard, shout out the Oakland Athletics. Evan, I'll be disappointed, but good God, Danker here on the chat. We need a bopper. Soler has been a dud. You're right. In my 30 home run bet with Steiny, I might as well just send him the Cash App right now, right? Because that ain't going to happen unless he gets super hot. Thank you, Carter.
He's got 54 games, hit 18 home runs.
But, I mean, you're not going to get a bopper, Evan. But you know how many teams are really good? What you need, if I were to ask you what do the Giants need, they need offense. But Soler is your bopper. He's got to get out of whatever he's in. And it's been a season-long slump from a bopper standpoint, Danker. So you are right, but the reality of by tomorrow they go get a bat, I'm not. Your bat is Soler.
Well, and your bat, if you want to go get one, is going to cost you. So what are you willing to give up?
Pay me.
This isn't just about a name. I know that the morning show is throwing around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if he's available potentially.
Toronto's acting like they're not getting off of him. And
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
And who's the shortstop I love?
For a King's ransom.
Yeah,
Bo Bichette.
Oh, yeah, Bichette. Like, they're not going anywhere, those two.
Well,
allegedly.
Bichette might actually be going somewhere because they're probably going to have to choose which one they want to pay. And they could pay both of them, but they got a lot of money wrapped up for a team that has not looked like they can make, or I guess they made the playoffs 2 years ago, but in the AL East, it's really difficult to compete. So who do you want to pay? Bichette might be somebody that's available. You know, a team like the Chicago White Sox looking to sell parts. I mean, if you're talking about aiming high, if you're talking about swinging for the fences, something that the Giants have not been able to do that often this season.
Well, good one.
Luis Robert is the guy that I want.
I'd go to the airport and get him.
Luis Robert is the position player that I would want if you're looking for a bopper. If you're looking for a big bat, that's who you want. But the bigger question that the Giants have to answer before they go out and trade for a position player, maybe add a little bit to the bullpen, is what do you do with Blake Snell? I mean, we're right now on MLB Network. The question just popped across the ticker, MLB Central. Will the Giants trade Blake Snell? And I want to know what fans think at 888-957-9570. Do you trade Blake Snell? Do you do it after striking out 15 batters over the weekend?
Give us that Rocky stat just about how good they are. How many times did they strike out in 6 innings? You blew my mind, Evan, if you remember off top. But they
he
were
pitched
whipping.
6 innings.
Okay.
That means he got 18 outs.
Yeah.
15 of them were via strikeout.
That is just good God.
Wow, dude.
That's really hard to do. That's really hard to do.
Evan, tell me if this is invalid or valid, real quick, and I'm glad to have you back. If they move Snell, that means they're trying to that is Operation Rebuild for the net. That to me signals you are about to do another rebuild. And how the hell can Farhan be the overseer of basically 2 rebuilds?
We'll ask and answer that question on the other side. 888-957-957.